Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we are going to be reviewing the Mazda Bongo Friendly 2 litre petrol. The reason why we're reviewing just the 2 litre petrol is because that's the only van I've got for a start, but also I get a lot of questions asking, is the 2 litre any good? Because there are two other models of the Bongo, which is the 2.5 litre diesel and the 2.5 V6 petrol. So yeah, so the diesel was kind of like the first one, so they're the kind of the older ones, and then they go all the way up to the sort of the more modern ones are the V6 and the 2 litre. So we're going to review just the 2 litre because this one does seem to strike a chord with a lot of people, sort of like for value, and is the reliability good? So we're going to go through a lot of points. We're going to get onto the most important one at the end, which is the performance, which I think is the big one that everyone really wants to know about. So we'll go through the little stages and we'll see what we think. So let's kick it off with the first one, which is to do with the bodywork and the vehicle itself. So let's dive into it. So the first point on the list is the bodywork. Now they're all identical, so it doesn't matter whether it's a 2.5 diesel or up to the 2 litre. If you step inside each one of those, they're basically going to be exactly the same size and shape, and the exterior is basically the same, except for the petrols tend to be the facelift versions, which means they've got like the more updated grille. Some of them have got the like body styling kit type thing. Mine had that on there. I've actually taken it off because I didn't really like it. You can actually put those on the older ones apparently and update the look, so that tells you that the panels are basically the same. So yeah, so inside is going to be exactly the same. Some of the layouts are different. For example, some of the vans had gull wing seats at the back, and the runners might be a different length, so those might be different, but the actual paneling, the inside and everything is identical. So you're not really gaining, or you're not missing anything with the 2 litre petrol. So on that side, no difference. So the next thing is miles per gallon. So how efficient is it? Well, not very. That's the truth. About as efficient as all the other ones. So they're all actually, surprisingly, are all in roughly the same range for miles per gallon. They all sort of sit around between 22 and 30 miles per gallon. Mine, I can usually get on the higher end of that, to be honest with you. On long runs, you're definitely sort of more up towards the 30 miles per gallon. Depends how you're loaded and depends what the wind's like and kind of like where you're driving. Are you on motorways, or wherever you are? Are you going in a hilly location? So generally, I tend to get about 30 miles to the gallon when I'm going on longer trips, and that's been pretty good. I think that's okay for a van of this age anyway. So they're all pretty much in the same vein, really. I mean, they're not very fuel efficient if you're driving around towns and things like that, short sort of drives everywhere. It does eat into the petrol quite quickly. So yeah, they're not the best, but if you're comparing all three, then it's no worse and no better than the other ones, really. Even though this one's actually called the Eco City Runner or something like that. So you kind of think it's going to be like a more efficient vehicle, but I don't think it is. And other people have reported that it's not really, but I tend to be on the upper end of it. So I think maybe there's something in it, but I've never really delved into it too much. So yeah, miles per gallon, I wouldn't count on it being good. So about the same. So the next thing up on my list is maintenance. Now this one for me is actually probably the biggest one, even though I think I've left the biggest one to the end, but the maintenance is what really sells it to me for the 2 litre, because these are by far the easiest engines to work on, and probably one of the most reliable, even though the diesel is incredibly reliable, and I should think the V6 is as well, but apparently the 2 litre, because it's so easy to maintain, it is very reliable. Now the maintenance side, which I particularly like, is the coolant system. So on the 2 litre, they perfected the coolant system and made it so it's a self-bleeding coolant system, and this is a big deal because on the 2.5 litre diesel, they had a bit of a problem, and anyone who knows bongos, or if you're looking at bongos, they can sometimes have a problem. If you have a coolant leak and air gets into the coolant system, it's not able to push that air out of the system by itself, and it can create an airlock, and this creates it to overheat and can, in quite a lot of circumstances, can blow the head of the engine, and that's not good. So that can be quite a costly repair for that, sort of £1,500, £2,000 maybe. So it's a really expensive repair. So if you've got a diesel, you've got to really make sure that that coolant system is well maintained and all the pipes, you check them over. Because if you spring a leak, you can get it. If you just stop quickly enough, you're generally okay. It's only extreme sort of things. If you keep driving, you could crack the head quite quickly. So with the 2 litres, you can still crack a head. I'm not saying you can't, but because if you can find a fault reasonably quickly, you can repair it and you can just top up the system and it'll self-bleed and then you're away. Yeah, so this happened to me twice now. So I've already done a video on the second coolant leak that I had, but the first one was actually the heater matrix that leaked, and that just dribbled out all over the driveway, and I didn't drive anywhere, so all I had to do was repair that. It's a really easy repair. I topped it back up with coolant and I was back on the road again, no problem. Second one was I was actually driving and there was all steam coming up, and I had to stop and actually repair it in B&Q's car park. Luckily, I found a little bit of LPG hose from B&Q and fixed it with that, topped it up, and then I got the proper part later on. And, you know, it just goes to show that you can fix things relatively simple on the 2 litre, and you got the chance of, you know, actually doing it relatively quickly as well, because you don't have to go through the whole bleeding procedure, which is inherent on the 2.5 diesels. So for me, that's pretty good. And things like cam belt changes, I've got one done recently, which is, I thought was a pretty good price. I think the diesels are the cheapest, so that's something to bear in mind, but you don't have to do it that often. You know, it's every, I don't know, 5 years or something. So it's not too bad, it's not a bad issue or anything like that. So yeah, and apparently they're just the easiest one to work on from a mechanical point of view. I don't do many mechanic things, so leave that up to the garages. But yeah, so maintenance, a big plus. Okay, so on to the final point now. This is the big one that everyone I think wants to know about, which is performance. So, does it work well enough? Is it fast enough? And all this kind of stuff. Well, I've had mine for 9 years, and I'm not going to lie to you, it is slightly underpowered. Right, we're not talking about a race car here, but it's a camper van. I mean, what are we expecting? So, I think what we'll do though, before we get delved too deeply into this, I think what we should do is we'll jump inside the Bongo and let's go for some drives. And I'm going to mix different things that I've done over the years. So I've got some video footage of different places I've been, so different scenarios, and we'll talk through it and we'll see if it's actually up to the job. So here we are now out driving in the Bongo. So this is kind of just a sort of a mildly hilly area, so nothing too taxing in this little segment here. Just cruising around the back roads, and you know, this is absolutely ideal sort of country for the Bongo. So no problems here. So let's try and tax it a little bit more, and we'll jump to some footage next of it when I was in Scotland. So we'll jump straight into an overtaking manoeuvre. Boom, look at that. So we're in the outside lane. Holy moly, look at that. That's pretty cool. So, so in this actual scenario here, I'm actually fully loaded. We've got 2 adults, 2 children. We've got a massive awning tent on the back. We've got all the camping gear. So this van is as heavy as it's ever going to be. We've even got a rooftop box on this. So we're cruising around here, probably about 65, 70. So motorway driving like this, I think it does pretty well. If it is on a big, slightly longer hill, it does start to struggle. You will notice it on those like longer sort of inclines. But yeah, generally not too bad. So our next location is a hill in Scotland. So there's plenty of those around the area, and this one was a really good one. Yeah, so it's obviously absolutely pouring down with rain, still fully loaded with the kids and all the camping gear. And on this kind of hill, we do have to give it a little bit more beans, so you probably hear me revving the engine a lot more, but that's fine because the 2 litre can take it. I think that the 2.5 diesel would have eaten this for breakfast, but hey, I think it's doing pretty damn well here. I've had to sort of lower the audio on the footage because we're all just chatting away, which is what you do on holiday, I suppose, isn't it? And yeah, I think this is doing pretty well. This road isn't actually a particularly slow road, so we're trying to keep up with the traffic, and we don't have like a big queue behind us or anything like that. So yeah, I think it does a pretty damn good job of this. So how does it handle long distances? Well, here's a trip we did to France. We went all the way across the north of France, and we was out there for an entire month, driving around, probably a couple of thousand miles, and absolutely handled it absolutely fantastically. Here's another trip we did to Wales. Again, the hills of Wales, you know, they're not to be trifled with. A bit like Scotland. So, you know, going all around Snowdonia National Park, absolutely fantastic. And it handled it beautifully. Again, fully loaded again. Here we are in the Peak District. Yeah, more hills. Everywhere's hills except for where I live. Yeah, so no problem going all kind of long distances. It's a very comfortable vehicle to drive. But that goes for all the ones. It's not specific to the 2 litre. And I also went through one of the largest ford crossings I've ever encountered in the UK. So this beast will pretty much tackle most things. Beautiful. So there we go. I think the 2 litre is, you know, fine in its performance. It's not the most powerful of things, but it will get you there. It is just a camper van, and that's all you need, really, isn't it? You know. So I suppose the question really is, would I buy another 2 litre Mazda Bongo? Yeah, if it was in really good condition, as with all Bongos, you know, they now need to be in really good condition to warrant buying them. But yes, I would say I would have no problems buying a 2 litre. I'll be perfectly happy owning a second one. I would have loved to have tried the other versions, the V6 and the diesel, just because they've got more power, just to know what they're like. They're supposed to be fantastic. The V6 is supposed to be super smooth and a really quiet engine. So that's something I would really love to have had a go in and have a go. Maybe I will one day, I don't know. I suppose because I don't know what they're like, I can't possibly comment on how good they are. So I'm only coming from the perspective of ever owning a 2 litre Mazda Bongo, but you know, I love it. I still love it now and perfectly happy with it. So I wouldn't let it put you off if you found a good one. So yeah, I would sort of base it on how good the condition is, mileage and so forth, and how well it's been looked after. And that should be your sort of the guiding sort of reasoning for buying a 2 litre Mazda Bongo. So anyway, there we go. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it useful if you are looking for a 2 litre version. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers.